The hotel hallway smelled like expensive carpet cleaner and other people's secrets. Camille adjusted the gift bags in her hands, the silver tissue paper crinkling as she shifted her weight from one heel to the other. Room 817. She'd confirmed it 3 times with the front desk, smiling that bright smile she always used when she wanted people to help her. "I'm surprising my husband for our anniversary," she'd said. The clerk had thought it was romantic. Her reflection in the brass room numbers showed a beautiful woman with smooth brown skin, her hair in soft curls that had taken an hour to perfect. She wore Brandon's favorite dress, the blue one that hugged her curves in all the right places. 10 years of marriage and she still wanted to look perfect for him. Still wanted to make him smile, that smile he'd given her on their wedding day. The bags were heavy with his favorite things. Expensive scotch. The watch he'd been eyeing for months. Tickets to the basketball game he'd mentioned wanting to see. She'd been saving for 3 months, skimming a little from each paycheck to pull this surprise together. Brandon had been working so hard lately, so many late nights and weekend trips. He deserved something special. This boy's weekend was supposed to be his chance to relax with his college friends. Golf, drinks, catching up on old times. He'd been talking about it for weeks, almost defensive when she'd said she'd miss him. "You know I need this, Cam," he'd said. "Just the guys, no stress, no work talk. I'll be back Sunday night refreshed." But their anniversary fell on Saturday, right in the middle of his trip. And Camille had thought, why not surprise him? Why not show up, celebrate together for an hour, then let him get back to his friends? She'd driven 3 hours, giddy with excitement the whole way, imagining his face when he opened the door, the way he'd laugh and pull her into a hug. Maybe they'd steal a quick moment alone before she drove back home. She knocked. 3 sharp raps against the heavy hotel door. Footsteps inside. Quick, light footsteps. Not Brandon's heavy walk. The door swung open. A woman stood there. Young, maybe late 20s. Blonde hair messy around her shoulders. Wearing an oversized white dress shirt, a men's shirt. Just the shirt and apparently nothing else, the hem hitting mid-thigh on her long, pale legs. Camille's brain stuttered. Wrong room. Must be wrong room. But the woman's eyes went wide with recognition. Not confusion. Recognition. "Oh my God," the woman breathed. "I'm looking for Brandon Mitchell," Camille heard herself say. Her voice sounded strange. Far away. "This is room 817, right?" The woman's mouth opened. Close. Her hand tightened on the door frame. Then Brandon's voice came from inside the room. "Amber? Who is it? Come back to bed." The world tilted. Camille knew that voice. She'd heard it every morning for 10 years. Heard it whisper, "I love you," 1,000 times. Heard it promise forever on their wedding day. Come back to bed. The woman, Amber, looked over her shoulder, then back at Camille. Something like guilt flickered across her face. But not much. Not nearly enough. "Is that my husband?" Camille's voice was still calm. Strangely calm. Like she was watching this happen to someone else. Amber opened her mouth to answer, but Brandon appeared behind her. He was shirtless, wearing only boxer shorts. His hair was messy. His eyes were still soft with sleep. Those eyes landed on Camille, and she watched the exact moment his brain caught up to what was happening. His face drained of color. "Camille. What? How?" "Surprise," Camille whispered. The gift bag slipped from her fingers. The scotch bottle made a heavy thud against the carpet. The tissue paper drifted like snow. That watch, $800 she'd saved so carefully, rolled from the bag and stopped against Brandon's bare foot. He didn't bend to pick it up. He just stared at her, frozen. Amber had the decency to step back from the door, pulling the shirt, Brandon's shirt, Camille realized, the blue one she'd ironed for him before he left, tighter around herself. Camille's hands were shaking, but her mind was crystal clear. She felt her phone in her purse. Felt the weight of it. Without thinking, operating on some instinct she didn't know she had, she pulled it out. Opened the camera. Started recording. "Don't," Brandon started forward. "Camille, wait, let me explain." Explain what? She was still recording. Getting everything. The hotel room behind them. The rumpled bed visible through the doorway. Amber in his shirt. Brandon half naked. "Explain why your colleague is answering your hotel room door wearing your clothes? During your boys' weekend? It's not what it looks like." "Really?" Camille heard the laugh that came out of her mouth. Sounded wrong. Broken. "Because it looks like you're having an affair. Is that not what this is?" Amber crossed her arms, looking uncomfortable but also defiant. Like she had a right to be there. Like Camille was the one intruding. "How long?" Camille asked, zooming in on Brandon's face. She wanted to capture the guilt there. The fear. She wanted evidence of this moment when her marriage died. How long have you been sleeping with her? Babe, please put the phone down. How long? Brandon's jaw clenched. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year. While she'd been planning anniversary surprises. While she'd been skimming from her paychecks to buy him gifts. While she'd been loving him, trusting him, believing in him. Camille stopped recording. Took 3 photos. Brandon and Amber frozen there like the cheaters they were. Then she put her phone back in her purse, picked up her car keys, and looked her husband of 10 years directly in the eyes. I want you out of my house by the time I get home, she said. Her voice didn't shake. She was proud of that. Everything. Gone. Camille. She turned and walked toward the elevator. Didn't run. Didn't cry. Just walked, her heels clicking against the carpet with steady, even beats. Behind her, she heard Brandon call her name again. Heard him coming into the hallway. Don't follow me, she said without turning around. Don't call me. Don't come home. My lawyer will contact you. The elevator doors opened like a miracle and she stepped inside. Pressed the lobby button. Watched Brandon standing in the hallway, still half naked, still looking panicked, getting smaller and smaller as the doors slid shut. Only when the elevator started moving did her knees buckle. Only then did the first sob tear through her chest. Only then did Camille let herself break. But even as tears streamed down her face, even as her heart shattered into pieces she wasn't sure could ever be put back together, one thought was absolutely clear. She was done. She was done being the fool. She was done being the woman who believed lies. She was done with Brandon Mitchell. And whatever came next, she would face it with her eyes wide open. The drive home was a blur. Camille didn't remember getting into her car. Didn't remember leaving the hotel parking lot. She came back to herself somewhere on the highway, doing 70 in the middle lane, with tears she didn't feel crying still wet on her face. She pulled over at a rest stop. Sat in the parking lot with her engine running and her hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles ached. Other cars came and went. Families on road trips. Couples holding hands. Normal people living normal lives where their spouses weren't sleeping with other people at hotels. Her phone buzzed. Brandon. She declined the call. It buzzed again. And again. Text messages started flooding in. Please let me explain. It was a mistake. I love you. She means nothing to me. Please come back so we can talk. Camille stared at the messages. She means nothing to me. 6 months of sleeping with someone who meant nothing. 6 months of lies and sneaking around in secret hotel rooms. That was supposed to make it better? Her fingers moved across the screen. She didn't block his number, not yet. She might need these messages later, some distant part of her brain whispered. Evidence. Documentation. She just turned her phone to silent and put it face down on the passenger seat. She needed to think. Needed to plan. Crying in a rest stop parking lot wasn't going to fix anything. What did she know? Brandon was having an affair with someone named Amber. 6 months. That woman had known exactly who Camille was when she opened that door. Which meant Brandon had talked about his wife. Probably complained about her. Probably told this Amber things that should have stayed between husband and wife. What else? This was at a hotel he'd claimed was for a boys' weekend. Which meant his friends either didn't know, or worse, they were covering for him. How many of those weekend golf trips had really been golf? Camille pulled out her phone again. Opened her banking app with shaking fingers. Their joint checking account showed up first. Normal balance. Nothing strange. But there was a credit card linked to the account that she rarely looked at. Brandon handled most of the bills. She trusted him with that. Trusted. Past tense now. She clicked into the credit card statement. Scrolled through the charges. There, 2 months ago. Hotel reservation. Different city. The weekend he'd said he was visiting his college roommate. And there, 3 months ago. Expensive restaurant. The night he'd said he was working late on a big project. 4 months ago. Jewelry purchase. $600. She'd never received jewelry. Had never seen a charge like that on their statements. Had he bought gifts for Amber? With their money? With the money Camille earned from her job at the medical office? The paychecks she deposited into their shared account like a good wife? Her stomach turned. She barely got her car door open before she threw up in the parking lot. Heaving until there was nothing left. Until she was just shaking and sweating and spitting bile onto the pavement. A woman walking past with 2 kids looked over with concern. You okay, honey? I'm fine, Camille managed. Just car sick. The woman didn't look convinced but kept walking. Camille closed her door, drank some water from the bottle in her cup holder, and leaned her seat back. She needed to get home. Needed to figure out what to do next. But she couldn't drive like this. Couldn't think like this. She set a timer for 20 minutes and closed her eyes. Not to sleep. Just to breathe. Just to exist in this new reality where her marriage was over and her husband was a stranger. When the timer went off, Camille felt calmer. Emptier. Like all the tears and the throwing up had hollowed her out, and now there was just space. Space to think clearly. She sat up. Fixed her makeup in the mirror, even though her eyes were still red. Tied her hair back. Started her car. The rest of the drive home she made a list in her head. Things she needed to do. Steps to take. She couldn't fall apart. Not yet. Not until she was safe. First, document everything. The photos and video from the hotel were already backed up to her phone's cloud storage, but she needed more copies. Email them to herself. Save them to a USB drive. Make sure they couldn't disappear. Second, change passwords. Bank accounts, email, everything. Before Brandon thought to lock her out of anything. Third, find a lawyer. A good one. Someone who would fight for her. She didn't know anything about divorce lawyers, but she knew someone who would. Her friend Nicole had been through a messy divorce 3 years ago. Nicole would know who to call. Fourth, protect herself financially. She didn't know exactly how to do that, but the lawyer would. She couldn't let Brandon drain their accounts or hide assets while she was figuring things out. Fifth, find somewhere to stay. She told Brandon to be out of the house by the time she got home, but that was stupid. He wouldn't listen. And even if he did leave, she didn't want to be in that house. Didn't want to sleep in that bed they'd shared. Didn't want to see his things and remember when she'd been happy. Nicole. She'd call Nicole. The familiar streets of her neighborhood appeared. Their house was the blue one on the corner with the white shutters. Camille had picked those shutters. Had spent a weekend painting them by hand because they couldn't afford to hire someone. Brandon had helped, and they'd laughed when they got more paint on each other than on the wood. That had been 5 years ago. Had he been faithful then? Or had there been others before Amber? She pulled into the driveway. Brandon's car wasn't there. Good. She hadn't really expected him to listen to her, but maybe the shock had actually gotten through to him. Inside, the house was exactly as she'd left it that morning. Coffee cup in the sink. Her work badge on the counter where she'd forgotten it. The anniversary card she'd written to Brandon sitting on the kitchen table, still in its envelope. She'd planned to leave it at the hotel with the gifts. Planned to make him smile. Camille picked up the card. Tore it in half. Dropped it in the trash. Then she went upstairs, pulled out her suitcase and started packing. Nicole's apartment smelled like lavender candles and safety. Camille sat on the couch with a glass of wine she hadn't touched while Nicole paced back and forth, occasionally pausing to curse Brandon's existence. 6 months, Nicole said for the third time. That lying piece of, and at a hotel? He couldn't even be creative about it. The worst part is I bought him gifts, Camille said. Her voice was flat. She'd cried herself out during the drive. Now there was just this strange numbness. Spent 3 months saving money. For a man who was spending our money on another woman. Nicole sat down hard beside her. Okay. We're not going to let him get away with this. First thing tomorrow we're calling Patricia Holmes. She handled my divorce and she's ruthless. She'll make sure you get everything you deserve. I don't even know what I deserve anymore. Everything. You deserve everything. Nicole squeezed her hand. But tonight you need to sleep. Guest room's all yours. I already put fresh sheets on the bed. Camille nodded, but she didn't move toward the guest room. Instead, she pulled out her laptop. I need to do something first. She logged into their joint email account, the one they used for bills and household stuff. Her fingers were steady now as she searched through Brandon's sent messages. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but she'd know it when she found it. There. An email from 4 months ago. Sent to someone named Amber J 1990, with the subject line, "Can't wait to see you." Camille's stomach turned, but she clicked it open. Read the message. It was explicit. Detailed. Everything Brandon had apparently been doing with Amber while telling Camille he was working late. She forwarded it to her personal email. Kept searching. More emails. Hotel confirmations under Brandon's name, but always for one guest. Restaurant reservations. And then, there, 3 weeks ago, a email confirmation for jewelry. A diamond bracelet. $600. Shipped to an address Camille didn't recognize. She Google mapped the address. Apartment complex on the other side of town. Amber's place most likely. You finding stuff? Nicole asked quietly. Too much stuff. Camille opened a new document and started making a timeline. Every hotel visit she could find evidence of. Every expensive dinner. Every suspicious charge. She cross-referenced it with her memory. When had Brandon said he was working late? When had he claimed to be at boys' weekends or visiting friends? Nearly every work event in the last 6 months had been a lie. Nearly every weekend trip. Her husband had been living a double life, and she'd been too trusting to see it. But trust wasn't stupidity. She'd had no reason to doubt him. They'd been happy. At least she thought they'd been happy. Had Brandon been happy? Or had he been bored, looking for excitement, willing to throw away 10 years for someone new? It didn't matter now. What mattered was protecting herself. Camille logged into their bank accounts and credit cards. Changed every password. Set up alerts for any new charges or withdrawals. Then she transferred half of everything in their joint accounts to her personal checking account. The one she'd opened when she was 20 and kept all through their marriage. The one that only had her name on it. Brandon would be furious when he noticed. She didn't care. Smart, Nicole said, watching over her shoulder. Very smart. He can't drain the accounts if you get there first. I keep thinking about what else he might have done, Camille said. What if there are other accounts I don't know about? What if he's been hiding money? That's what Patricia will help you find. She has investigators, forensic accountants. If Brandon's been hiding assets, they'll find them. Camille nodded. She felt cold. Detached. Like she was watching someone else's life fall apart from a safe distance. Maybe that was shock. Maybe it was survival. Either way, she was grateful for it. She could cry later. Right now, she needed to be smart. Her phone buzzed. Brandon again. She'd gotten 17 calls and 32 texts since leaving the hotel. She scrolled through them without opening the message threads. I'm so sorry. Please talk to me. Where are you? I need to explain. This is crazy, Camille. You can't just leave like this. We need to talk about this like adults. That last one made her laugh. A short, bitter sound. Adults. He wanted to talk like adults. After 6 months of sneaking around, lying, cheating, spending their money on someone else, he thought they could just talk about it? She took a screenshot of all the messages. Sent them to her email. More evidence for the pile. He doesn't get it, Camille said. He actually thinks I might forgive him. Do you? Nicole asked carefully. Camille looked at her friend. Nicole had forgiven her ex-husband twice before finally divorcing him. Had tried counseling, second chances, all of it. And she told Camille once, late at night with too much wine, that her only regret was not leaving the first time. That every chance she'd given him had just been another chance for him to hurt her. No, Camille said. I don't forgive him. I won't forgive him. This marriage is over. Saying it out loud made it real. Made it final. Something inside her chest cracked open again, and fresh tears spilled down her face. But even crying, even hurting, she was sure. She was done. Nicole handed her tissues and didn't say anything. Just sat there while Camille cried. And when the tears finally stopped, when Camille was empty again, Nicole asked, "What else do you need to do tonight?" Camille wiped her eyes. Looked at her laptop screen. I need to find a private investigator. Tonight. I need to know everything. Every lie. Every affair. If there were others before Amber. Camille's voice was steady again. I need to know what I'm dealing with. And I don't trust Brandon to tell me the truth. Nicole pulled out her own laptop. Patricia will have someone. But if you want to get started now, I can help you look. My ex taught me a lot about finding information on cheating spouses. They worked together in Nicole's living room until midnight. Found a private investigator named Thomas Reed who specialized in infidelity cases. His website promised discretion, thoroughness, and results. His reviews were all from satisfied clients who'd caught their spouses in lies. Camille sent him an email explaining what she needed. Attached the photos and video from the hotel. Listed all the suspicious charges she'd found. Asked for a full background check on Brandon and Amber, surveillance if necessary, and a complete audit of Brandon's activities for the last year. She'd probably spent thousands on this. Money they didn't really have. Money she should save for the divorce lawyer and the deposit on a new apartment and all the other costs of rebuilding her life. But she needed to know. Needed the truth. All of it. Done, she said, closing her laptop. Now what? Now you sleep, Nicole said firmly. Tomorrow we call Patricia. Monday you meet with the investigator. One step at a time. But tonight you've done enough. Camille wanted to argue. Wanted to keep digging, keep searching, keep finding evidence until she had every piece of Brandon's betrayal documented. But exhaustion was pulling at her. The adrenaline that had kept her moving all day was fading, leaving her hollow and heavy. She let Nicole guide her to the guest room. Let her friend hug her goodnight. lay down on the unfamiliar bed in unfamiliar pajamas and stared at the ceiling. Her marriage was over. Her husband was a cheater. Her life was about to change in ways she couldn't predict. But she wasn't helpless. She wasn't going to be a victim. She was going to fight. Was going to make sure Brandon faced consequences for what he'd done. Was going to protect herself and her future. And somehow, eventually she was going to be okay. She had to believe that. Had to hold on to it. Because if she didn't believe she could survive this, the weight of it would crush her. Patricia Holmes had an office that looked like money and power. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Mahogany desk that probably cost more than Camille's car. Framed degrees on the wall from universities Camille had only dreamed of attending. And Patricia herself, 50-something, silver hair cut in a sharp bob, wearing a suit that said she didn't lose cases. "Tell me everything," Patricia said, sitting back in her leather chair. "Start from the beginning." Camille told the story. The surprise trip to the hotel. The woman answering the door in Brandon's shirt. The 6-month affair. The credit card charges and hidden expenses. The emails. All of it spilled out in a rush that left her breathless. Patricia listened without interrupting. Took notes on a legal pad. When Camille finished, Patricia set down her pen and looked at her with eyes that had probably seen 1,000 stories just like this one. "First, I'm sorry this happened to you," Patricia said. "Infidelity cases are always painful. But you've done something very smart by documenting everything. Those photos, the video, the emails, that's solid evidence. It gives us leverage." "Leverage for what?" "For getting you what you deserve in the divorce settlement. Virginia is an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets are divided fairly but not necessarily equally. Your husband's adultery won't directly impact property division, but it can affect spousal support. And if we can prove he wasted marital assets on his affair, which it sounds like he did, we can argue for reimbursement." Camille nodded. She'd read some of this online last night between crying and planning, but hearing it from a professional made it real. "How much did he spend on her?" Patricia asked. "I found about $3,000 in charges I can prove were for Amber. Hotel rooms, dinners, jewelry. But there might be more I haven't found yet." "We'll find it. I work with a forensic accountant who specializes in uncovering hidden assets and expenses. He'll go through every financial record you have access to. Bank statements, credit cards, investment accounts, retirement funds, everything. If Brandon has been hiding money or spending marital funds inappropriately, we'll know." "I hired a private investigator," Camille said. "Thomas Reed. He's looking into Brandon's activities for the past year." Patricia smiled. Actually smiled. "Good. Thomas is excellent. I've worked with him before. He's thorough. If there's anything to find, he'll find it." "What if there were other affairs? Before Amber?" "Then we document those too. The more we can show a pattern of behavior, the stronger your case becomes." Patricia leaned forward. "Here's what I need from you. I need access to all your financial records. I need you to make a list of all marital assets. The house, cars, bank accounts, retirement funds, anything of value you own together. I need you to keep documenting everything Brandon does from this point forward. Every text, every call, every interaction. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good. And I need you to not engage with him unless absolutely necessary. Don't argue, don't negotiate, don't make any promises. Every communication should be brief and factual. If he wants to talk, refer him to me." "Understood." Camille thought about the angry texts that had started arriving last night. Brandon had discovered the money she transferred from their joint account. He was furious, demanding she put it back, threatening to freeze the account entirely. "He's already angry about the money I moved," she said. "Let him be angry. You had every right to protect yourself. Half of that account was yours. But from now on, don't move any more money without consulting me first. We need to make sure everything you do is defensible in court." Court. Divorce court. Camille had never imagined she'd be here. 10 years ago, standing at the altar in her white dress, promising forever, she'd believed it. Believed they would make it. Believed Brandon when he promised to love and cherish her. How had she gotten this so wrong? "I know what you're thinking," Patricia said quietly. "You're wondering how you missed the signs. How you didn't know." Every client asks themselves that question. And the answer is, you trusted your husband. That's not a character flaw. That's not you being stupid. That's you being a good person who believed the best of someone you loved. "I feel stupid," Camille whispered. "You're not stupid. You're hurt. There's a difference." Patricia pulled a tissue box closer to Camille. "But here's what I need you to understand. This divorce is going to be hard. Brandon is going to try to manipulate you. He's going to apologize, make promises, try to convince you to give him another chance. He might even bring Amber into it, claim it was her fault, say she seduced him. None of that matters. What matters is protecting yourself and building a new life. I don't want him back, Camille said firmly. I need you to know that. I'm not going to change my mind. This marriage is over. Then we fight for you. We fight for every dollar, every asset, every bit of security you need to start fresh. And we make sure Brandon understands that actions have consequences. They spent the next 2 hours going through details. Camille signed a retainer agreement. Wrote a check she couldn't really afford for Patricia's services. But it was worth it. Worth every penny if it meant getting out of this marriage with her dignity and her future intact. When she finally left Patricia's office, Camille felt different. Still hurt. Still angry. But also powerful. Like she wasn't just a victim of Brandon's choices. Like she was taking control of what happened next. Her phone rang as she walked to her car. Thomas Reed, the private investigator. Ms. Mitchell? His voice was professional neutral. I wanted to give you a preliminary update on what I've found so far. Camille's heart raced. Already? I'm efficient. And your husband wasn't very careful about covering his tracks. Papers rustled in the background. I've confirmed the affair with Amber Johnson started approximately 7 months ago, not 6 like your husband claimed. They met through work. She's a marketing consultant at his company. I have emails and text messages between them dating back to their first meeting. How did you get his text messages? I have my methods. Everything I provide you will be admissible in court. Thomas paused. But that's not why I'm calling. Ms. Mitchell, I found evidence of a previous affair. Different woman. About 2 years ago. It lasted roughly 4 months before ending. Her name was Bethany Torres. The parking garage spun. Camille leaned against her car. 2 years ago? Yes. I'm still gathering details, but it appears your husband has a pattern of infidelity. I'll have a full report for you by the end of the week, but I wanted you to know immediately. Thank you, Camille managed. Please keep looking. I need to know everything. She hung up and stood there in the parking garage, breathing in exhaust fumes and fighting the urge to throw up again. 2 years ago. While she'd been planning their 8th anniversary. While she'd been thinking their marriage was solid, happy, good. How many lies had she believed? How many times had Brandon looked her in the face and lied about where he'd been, what he'd done, who he'd been with? Her phone buzzed. Text from Brandon. We need to talk. Please. I love you. I made a mistake. Don't throw away 10 years over one mistake. Camille stared at the message. One mistake. He was calling years of cheating, multiple affairs, thousands of dollars spent on other women. One mistake. She deleted the text without responding. Started her car. Pulled out of the parking garage into the bright afternoon sunlight. One mistake. He had no idea what was coming for him. No idea that she knew about Bethany. No idea that she had lawyers and investigators and evidence piling up. He thought this was just about Amber. Thought if he apologized enough, promised enough, she might forgive him. But Camille was done forgiving. Done believing. Done being the wife who stood by while her husband destroyed their marriage. Now she was going to be the woman who destroyed him back. Not with violence. Not with drama. But with truth. With evidence. With the law. And when it was all over, when the divorce was final and the assets were divided and she was free, Brandon would understand exactly what he'd lost. Everything. Brandon came home 3 days after the hotel incident. Camille heard his key in the lock at 7 p.m., right as she was setting the table for one. She'd spent those 3 days at Nicole's apartment, gathering evidence, meeting with lawyers, building her case. But this morning, Patricia had given her specific instructions. Go home, Patricia had said. Act normal. Let him think he still has a chance. The more comfortable he gets, the more likely he is to make mistakes. So Camille had come home. Had cleaned the house. Had cooked dinner like she'd done 1,000 times before. Had put on sweatpants and one of Brandon's old college t-shirts. The one she usually wore when she was feeling comfortable and safe. Now she stood in the kitchen listening to Brandon's footsteps in the hallway and reminded herself to breathe. He appeared in the doorway. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, clothes wrinkled. Like he'd been sleeping in his car or maybe at Amber's place. Camille, he said. Just her name. But there was so much in it. Relief. Hope. Desperation. She didn't run to him. Didn't hug him. Just stood there with her arms crossed, looking at the man she'd loved for 10 years and seeing a stranger. We need to talk, Brandon said. I know. He stepped closer. She stepped back. He noticed. Pain flashed across his face. "I'm sorry," he said. "God, Camille, I'm so sorry. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please, please give me a chance to explain." This was the moment. She could scream at him. Could tell him she knew about Bethany. Could serve him with divorce papers right here in their kitchen and watch his world fall apart. But Patricia's voice was in her head. Let him think he has a chance. Let him get comfortable. Let him make mistakes. So instead, Camille said, "Sit down." Brandon sat at the kitchen table. Camille sat across from him. Between them, the space felt like an ocean. Like they were on different continents, speaking different languages. "Talk," she said. "It started 6 months ago." 7, Camille corrected quietly. "Thomas Reed says it started 7 months ago." Brandon's face went white. "Who's Thomas Reed?" "The private investigator I hired. He's very thorough. Very good at his job." She watched Brandon process this. Watched him realize she wasn't just the crying wife he'd left at the hotel. "Keep talking." "Camille, you hired an investigator? You hired a girlfriend." "I hired help." "Keep talking." Brandon ran his hands through his hair. "It was stupid. It didn't mean anything. Amber was just, she was there and we were working late and things happened." "Things happened," Camille repeated. "For 7 months. Things just kept happening. Hotel rooms just kept booking themselves. Jewelry just kept buying itself. For 7 whole months, things just happened." "I know how it sounds." "Do you? Do you know what it's like to find out your husband has been lying to you for months? Do you know what it's like to see another woman answer his hotel door wearing his shirt?" "No. God, no, I can't imagine." "You can't imagine. But you did it anyway." Camille leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything. Every detail. Every lie. Every time you snuck around. Every dollar you spent. And if I find out later that you left something out, this conversation is over and you'll hear from my lawyer." Brandon looked terrified. "Good. You should be terrified." He started talking. Told her about meeting Amber at work. About the first time they'd had coffee. About how it had been innocent at first, just talking, just friendship. Then not so innocent. Then hotel rooms and lies and a whole secret life. Camille listened. Took mental notes. Compared what he was saying to what Thomas had already found. Brandon was leaving things out. Small things but lies nonetheless. He claimed it was only Amber. Claimed she was the first. Claimed he'd never done this before. She didn't call him on the lies. Not yet. Just let him keep talking. Let him think she believed him. "I'll end it," Brandon said finally. "I'll cut all contact with Amber. I'll quit my job if I have to. Whatever it takes. Please, Camille. Please don't leave me. I love you. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm begging you." Tears were running down his face. Real tears. He was genuinely scared. Genuinely sorry. Maybe even genuinely loved her in whatever broken way he was capable of loving anyone. It didn't matter. "I need time," Camille said. "I need to think." "Okay. Yes. Take all the time you need. And I need space. You sleep in the guest room." Brandon nodded. "Whatever you need. And we're going to counseling. If there's any chance of saving this marriage, we need professional help." This was Patricia's idea. Go to counseling. Make it look like you're trying. Let him think there's hope. Meanwhile, document everything. Build your case. When the divorce comes, you'll be able to show you tried everything. "Yes," Brandon said. "Yes, counseling. I'll find someone. The best therapist we can afford. I already found someone. Dr. Sarah Mitchell. We have an appointment next week." "Okay. Good. That's good." Brandon reached across the table for her hand. Camille let him take it even though her skin crawled at his touch. "Thank you for giving me this chance. I won't let you down again. I promise." Another promise. Like all the other promises he'd broken. Camille pulled her hand back gently. "I'm tired. I'm going to bed." "Can I?" Brandon stopped himself. "Never mind. Sleep well." She went upstairs to their bedroom. Locked the door. Sat on the edge of the bed and let the mask fall. Let herself shake. Let herself feel the disgust and rage and pain she'd been holding in for the last hour. She'd done it. She'd faced him. She'd played the part. And he'd believed her. Believed she might actually forgive him. Her phone buzzed. Text from Patricia. "How did it go?" Camille typed back. "He bought it. He thinks I'm considering giving him another chance." "Perfect. Keep it up. Let him get comfortable. Meanwhile, Reed is still investigating. We're going to find everything." Camille set her phone down. Looked around the bedroom. At the bed she'd shared with Brandon for 10 years. At the photos on the dresser. Wedding photos, vacation photos, all the moments she'd thought were real. It had all been a lie. Maybe not all of it. Maybe there had been real love once. But it didn't matter anymore. Love didn't excuse betrayal. Love didn't make lies okay. She had 2 weeks of this. 2 weeks of pretending, playing along, letting Brandon think he was getting away with it. Patricia needed time to complete the forensic accounting. Thomas needed time to finish his investigation. The counseling sessions would create a record that Camille had tried to save the marriage. Then, when everything was in place, she would strike. Would serve him with papers. Would present evidence of every affair, every lie, every dollar misspent. Would watch his face when he realized she'd been playing him the whole time he thought he was playing her. 2 weeks. She could do this for 2 weeks. She had to. The day Camille served Brandon the divorce papers, the sky was bright blue and cloudless. Perfect weather. Like the universe was celebrating her freedom. She timed it perfectly. 2 weeks of playing the forgiving wife. 2 weeks of counseling sessions where Brandon had cried and apologized and promised to change. 2 weeks of sleeping in separate rooms and barely speaking except when necessary. 2 weeks of gathering evidence. And now Thomas Reed's full report was complete. Patricia's forensic accountant had finished his analysis. Everything was documented. Everything was ready. Brandon was at his office. Camille knew his schedule by heart. He had a staff meeting at 10 a.m. His boss would be there. His colleagues would be there. Everyone would be there. Perfect. She'd hired a professional process server. A woman named Janet who did this for a living. Janet was waiting in the lobby of Brandon's office building with an envelope containing divorce papers, evidence of his affairs, and a motion for exclusive use of the marital home. Camille sat in her car in the parking garage across the street and watched on her phone. She'd asked Janet to text her when it was done. At 10:15 her phone buzzed. Papers served. He looked shocked. His colleagues definitely noticed. Job done. Camille let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. It was done. No going back now. Her phone rang 30 seconds later. Brandon. She declined the call. It rang again. Declined again. Text messages started flooding in. What the hell? You served me at work? In front of everyone? This is insane. Call me right now. Camille turned off her phone. She didn't need to hear his reaction. Didn't need to explain herself. Patricia had told her, let the papers speak for themselves. She drove to Nicole's apartment. Her friend was waiting with coffee and a hug. How do you feel? Nicole asked. Free, Camille said. And she meant it. For the first time in 2 weeks she wasn't pretending. Wasn't lying. Wasn't playing a part. Scared. But free. You should be proud of yourself. Not every woman has the strength to walk away. I didn't really have a choice. Not after everything I found out. The full investigation had revealed even more than Camille expected. Not just Amber and Bethany. There had been a third woman. Someone named Rachel who worked at a gym Brandon had joined 2 years ago. That affair had lasted 3 months. 3 affairs in 3 years. Maybe more that Thomas hadn't found yet. Brandon had been living a completely double life. Had been lying about where he was, who he was with, what he was doing, all while coming home to Camille and acting like a devoted husband. The financial audit had been just as bad. Brandon had opened a credit card in his name only. Had been using it to pay for hotels, dinners, gifts for his girlfriends. He'd racked up $12,000 in debt. Debt that legally he would have to pay, not Camille. But it was money that could have gone toward their mortgage, their savings, their future. He'd also been taking money from their joint savings account. Small amounts. $200 here, $300 there. Always with explanations. Car repairs, work expenses, emergency purchases. All lies. All money that had gone to funding his affairs. In total, Brandon had spent over $20,000 of marital funds on his cheating. Money that had belonged to both of them. Money Camille had helped earn. Gone. Wasted. Spent on women who weren't his wife. Patricia was arguing for full reimbursement in the divorce settlement. Arguing that Brandon had wasted marital assets and should have to pay it back. Between that and the equity in their house and Camille's share of Brandon's retirement account, she would walk away from this marriage with something. Not everything she'd lost, but enough to start over. What happens now? Nicole asked. Now we wait. Brandon has 30 days to respond to the divorce petition. Patricia thinks he'll try to fight it. Try to drag it out. But we have all the evidence. He doesn't have a leg to stand on. What if he tries to see you? Tries to talk you out of it? I have a restraining order ready to file if he shows up at my place or contacts me directly. All communication has to go through Patricia. Camille sipped her coffee. It was bitter. Perfect. He made his choices. Now he lives with them. Her phone, still turned off, sat on the coffee table like a bomb. Camille knew when she turned it back on, there would be dozens of messages. Angry messages. Desperate messages. Maybe threatening messages. Brandon was going to lose it when he read through the divorce petition and saw all the evidence laid out. When he realized she knew about Bethany and Rachel. When he saw the financial records showing exactly how much he'd spent. But she didn't have to deal with it today. Today she could just sit here with her friend and breathe. The landline at Nicole's apartment rang. They both looked at it. "Don't answer it," Camille said. Nicole checked the caller ID. "It's Brandon. He must have remembered my number. Don't answer it." The ringing stopped. Started again 30 seconds later. Stopped. Started again. "He's not going to give up," Nicole said. Then we unplugged the phone. They did. Sat in silence for a moment. Then Nicole started laughing. Camille looked at her friend like she was crazy. "I'm sorry," Nicole said, still laughing. "I'm sorry, it's not funny. But can you imagine his face right now? You thought he was so smart. Thought you'd never find out. And now he's sitting in his office with divorce papers in his hand, realizing you knew everything the whole time he was lying to your face." Camille thought about it. About Brandon in that staff meeting. About the papers being served in front of his boss and colleagues. About him reading through the petition and seeing his whole life exposed. Every affair. Every lie. Every dollar misspent. And suddenly she was laughing too. Laughing until tears ran down her face. Laughing until her stomach hurt. Laughing like she hadn't laughed in 2 weeks. Maybe longer. Because Nicole was right. Brandon had thought he was so clever. Had thought he was getting away with it. Had thought Camille was the naive little wife who would never suspect, never question, never fight back. He'd been wrong about all of it. And now he knew it. The bombshell came during discovery. Patricia's office called Camille in for an emergency meeting 2 weeks after the divorce papers were served. Thomas Reed was there too, looking grim. "We found something," Patricia said without preamble. "Something big." Camille sat down. Her hands were already shaking. What else could there be? What else could Brandon possibly have done? Thomas slid a folder across the desk. "These are phone records from Brandon's cell phone for the past 2 years. We subpoenaed them as part of discovery. Look at the highlighted numbers." Camille opened the folder. Saw pages and pages of calls and texts. Several numbers were highlighted in yellow. She recognized one immediately, Amber's number. But there were others. Lots of others. "Who are these people?" she asked. "Friends," Thomas said. "Brandon's college buddies. The ones he claimed to go on those boys' weekends with." He pointed to one number. "This is Jackson Torres. This is Nathan Price. This is Christopher Hayes. All part of that friend group." "Okay. Look at the pattern of calls. Look when they happen." Camille scanned the records. The calls between Brandon and his friends spiked right before and right after his trips. Lots of calls. And lots of text messages. "We got the text message records too," Thomas said. He pulled out another document. "This is from a group chat between Brandon and his friends. Read this thread from 6 months ago." Camille read. Her hands started shaking harder. "Jackson, headed to Miami next weekend. Told my wife it's a work conference. Nathan, nice. I've got Atlanta in 2 weeks. Lisa thinks I'm visiting my mom. Brandon, Vegas for me next month. Camille doesn't suspect a thing. Christopher, we're all going to hell face with tears of joy. Nathan, worth it though. Jackson, my girl in Miami is incredible. You guys need to find your own cities. Brandon, already did. See you all in hell face with tears of joy." The words blurred. Camille had to set the paper down before she dropped it. "They were all doing it," she whispered. "All of them." "All of them," Patricia confirmed. Every single one of Brandon's friends in that group was having affairs. They were covering for each other. Creating alibis. The boys' weekends weren't really boys' weekends. They were affairs. All of them. Camille thought about the wives. She'd met them at parties, dinners, holidays. Jackson's wife Maria was pregnant with their second child. Nathan's wife Lisa had just bought a house they'd been saving for. Christopher's wife Jennifer had talked about marriage counseling they'd been doing to work through some issues. They had no idea. Just like Camille had had no idea. "There's more," Thomas said quietly. "Amber Johnson. She wasn't a random affair." "What do you mean?" "She's Jackson Torres's wife's sister." The room spun. Camille grabbed the edge of the desk. "What?" Maria Torres is Amber Johnson's older sister. Brandon wasn't just having an affair with a colleague. He was having an affair with his friend's sister-in-law. And Jackson knew. They all knew. They were covering for each other. This was insane. This was beyond anything Camille had imagined. It wasn't just Brandon cheating. It was an entire network of lies. An entire group of men helping each other destroy their marriages. Does Maria know? Camille asked. Does she know her sister was sleeping with Brandon? We don't know yet. But we think you should tell her. Camille looked at Patricia. Why? Because if Maria finds out about Jackson and Amber finds out that her affair destroyed her sister's marriage, there might be other consequences. Consequences beyond this divorce. And frankly, these women deserve to know the truth. Camille thought about it. Thought about calling Maria. Thought about destroying that woman's entire life with one phone call. Maria was pregnant. She had a toddler. She was building a life with Jackson. But that life was built on lies. Just like Camille's had been. I'll do it, Camille said. I'll tell her. Patricia nodded. We should also reach out to the other wives. Lisa and Jennifer. They deserve to know what their husbands have been doing. This is going to destroy multiple families. These families are already destroyed, Patricia said gently. They just don't know it yet. Better they find out now than waste more years on men who don't deserve them. Camille left Patricia's office with a list of phone numbers. Maria Torres, Lisa Price, Jennifer Hayes. Women she barely knew but whose lives she was about to change forever. She called Maria first. Sat in her car in the parking garage and dialed the number. Hello. Maria's voice was bright, happy. The voice of someone who didn't know her world was about to fall apart. Maria? This is Camille Mitchell, Brandon's wife. We met at the Labor Day barbecue last year? Oh yes. Hi Camille. How are you? I need to talk to you about something. About your husband and your sister. Can we meet? There was a pause. Then Maria's voice changed. Became cautious. What about them? I'd rather do this in person. Are you free this afternoon? Another pause. Longer this time. Camille, what's going on? Please. Just meet me. You need to hear this. They met at a coffee shop. Maria showed up with her toddler in a stroller, her pregnant belly obvious under her sweater. She looked scared. Camille didn't waste time. Showed her the evidence. The text messages between Jackson and Brandon. The phone records. The hotel reservations. And finally, the proof that Amber had been sleeping with Brandon. Maria's face went white. Then red. Then she started crying. Not quiet tears. Loud, gasping sobs that made her toddler start crying too. I'm sorry, Camille said. I'm so sorry. But you needed to know. My sister, Maria choked out. My own sister. How could she do this? I don't know. I don't have answers. I just have evidence. Maria pulled out her phone. Called someone. Mom? Can you come get me? I need you right now. She hung up. Looked at Camille with devastated eyes. Thank you for telling me. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I know the feeling. What are you going to do? About Brandon? Divorce him. Take him for everything I can. Make sure he faces consequences. Can I? Maria wiped her eyes. Can I use your evidence? For my own divorce. Yes, absolutely. My lawyer can share everything with your lawyer. Maria nodded. Sat there in silence for a moment. Then said, I'm 7 months pregnant. I'm 7 months pregnant and my husband is cheating on me with my sister and I have no idea what to do. Camille reached across the table. Took Maria's hand. You do what I'm doing. You protect yourself. You protect your kids. And you make sure the people who hurt you face consequences. I don't think I'm strong enough. You are. You're stronger than you know. You have to be. For them. Camille gestured to the toddler, now quiet again in the stroller. They need you to be strong. Maria nodded. Squeezed Camille's hand. Thank you. For telling me. For not letting me stay in the dark. You would have done the same for me. After Maria left, Camille sat alone in the coffee shop for a long time. Thought about the call she still had to make. Lisa and Jennifer. More lives about to implode. More families about to shatter. But it had to be done. These women deserved the truth. Deserved the chance to make their own choices about their marriages. Camille finished her coffee. Made the calls. Set up meetings. By the end of the day, she talked to all 3 women. All 3 were devastated. All 3 were angry. All 3 were filing for divorce. Brandon's entire friend group was falling apart. And it was all because of one hotel room. One woman answering a door wearing the wrong man's shirt. One wife who refused to look the other way. Camille drove home feeling exhausted but also powerful. She'd done this. She'd exposed the truth. She'd helped other women save themselves. And Brandon? Brandon's world was burning down around him. His wife leaving. His friends' wives leaving. His reputation destroyed. Everything he'd built crumbling into ash. He deserved every bit of it. The divorce took 6 months to finalize. 6 months of lawyers and court dates and negotiations. 6 months of Brandon trying to fight for the house, for money, for anything he could get. 6 months of Camille standing firm and refusing to give an inch. In the end, she got everything she'd asked for. The house. Half of Brandon's retirement account. Reimbursement for the $20,000 he'd wasted on his affairs. Full payment of all her legal fees. And Brandon got a reputation as a cheater and a liar that would follow him for years. His job had let him go 2 months into the divorce proceedings. Too much drama. Too much distraction. His affairs had become office gossip, and HR had decided it was easier to terminate him than deal with the situation. Amber had lost her job too. Fired for inappropriate relationships with colleagues. She tried to blame Camille. Had sent angry emails saying Camille had ruined her life. Camille had blocked her and never responded. Maria had divorced Jackson. Lisa had divorced Nathan. Jennifer had divorced Christopher. The entire friend group had imploded. 4 marriages ended. Multiple careers damaged. All because of lies and betrayal. But Camille didn't spend much time thinking about them anymore. She was too busy building something new. The idea had come to her 3 months into the divorce. She'd been meeting with Patricia, discussing settlement terms, when Patricia had mentioned how many women came through her office every month. How many wives who had no idea how to protect themselves financially during divorce. How many women who made mistakes in the early days that cost them later. Someone should teach them, Camille had said. Someone should help them understand what they're facing before they're in the middle of it. Patricia had looked at her thoughtfully. You could do that. Me? Why not? You've been through it. You know what to look for. You know how to document evidence, protect assets, build a case. You could help other women do the same. The idea had stuck. Camille had spent a month researching. Looking into what it would take to start a consulting business. What licenses she'd need. What services she could offer. What women needed most. She'd used part of her divorce settlement as seed money. Rented a small office. Created a website. Called her business New Beginnings Consulting, and advertised services for women navigating divorce. Her first client had been a woman named Patricia. Different Patricia, not the lawyer, whose husband had been having an affair for 2 years. Camille had helped her document everything. Had walked her through the process of protecting her finances. Had recommended lawyers and investigators. Had held her hand through the scary parts. Patricia had been so grateful. Had referred 3 friends. Those friends had referred others. Within 3 months, Camille had a steady stream of clients. She wasn't a lawyer. Wasn't a therapist. But she was something else. Someone who had survived what they were going through. Someone who understood the fear and the anger and the heartbreak. Someone who could help them be strategic when all they wanted to do was fall apart. The work was hard. Every client's story was different but also the same. Betrayal. Was. Money wasted on affairs. The same patterns repeated across dozens of marriages. And every time Camille felt that old anger rise up. That sense of injustice. That desire to help these women fight back. She hired an assistant after 6 months. Then a second consultant after a year. Women who had been through divorces themselves. Women who wanted to help others the way they'd wished someone had helped them. New Beginnings expanded. Camille started teaching workshops. Writing articles. Speaking at women's groups about financial protection in marriage. About red flags to watch for. About how to document evidence if you suspected infidelity. She became known. Not famous but recognized in her community. The woman who helped other women leave bad marriages. The woman who turned her pain into purpose. Brandon tried to contact her once, about a year after the divorce was final. Sent her an email asking if they could talk. Saying he was sorry. Saying he'd changed. Saying he missed her. Camille had deleted it without responding. She didn't miss him. Didn't wonder what might have been. Didn't regret her choice for even a second. Her life was better now. Harder in some ways, she was building a business from scratch, working long hours, learning as she went. But better. She was helping people. Making a difference. Building something that mattered. And she was happy. Genuinely happy. Not the fake happiness she'd had in her marriage, where she'd been telling herself everything was fine while ignoring all the signs that it wasn't. Real happiness. The kind that came from knowing exactly who you were and what you wanted. She'd started dating again. Nothing serious yet. A few dinners here and there. One relationship that had lasted 3 months before they both decided they wanted different things. Was okay. She wasn't in a hurry. Wasn't desperate for a relationship. She was complete on her own. The business was her focus. Her passion. Her purpose. Every woman she helped, every successful divorce settlement, every client who walked away from a bad marriage with her dignity and her finances intact. It all felt like a victory. Like justice. 2 years after finding Brandon's affair, Camille stood in her expanded office and looked at the wall of thank you cards from clients. Dozens of them. Women who had survived. Who had started over. Who had built new lives. She'd done that. She'd helped make that happen. And every time she felt that old pain trying to creep back in, every time she remembered that hotel room door opening and seeing Amber standing there in Brandon's shirt, she looked at these cards and remembered. That day had been the beginning of the end of her old life. But it had also been the beginning of everything new. 3 years after the divorce, Camille heard about Brandon through a mutual acquaintance. He was working at a mid-level job, nothing like the position he'd had before. Still single. Still trying to rebuild a reputation that might never fully recover. Amber had moved to a different state. Her relationship with her sister Maria was destroyed. Maria had full custody of her children and had built a new life as a single mother. She'd also become one of New Beginning's success stories. Camille had helped her through her divorce, and Maria now volunteered at the company, helping other pregnant women navigate leaving their husbands. Lisa and Jennifer had both remarried. Happy marriages this time to men who treated them with respect. They stayed in touch with Camille, sent her updates, invited her to dinners. They'd formed a sort of support group. Women who had survived their husbands' betrayals and come out stronger. The boys' weekend friend group no longer existed. Jackson, Nathan, and Christopher had all scattered to different cities, their friendships destroyed along with their marriages. Camille didn't think about them much. They were consequences of their own actions. Nothing more. What she thought about instead was the empire she was building. New Beginnings now had offices in 3 cities. Camille had hired 10 consultants, all women with their own divorce stories. They offered a range of services: financial planning, evidence documentation, emotional support, legal referrals, career counseling. Everything a woman might need to leave a bad marriage and build a new life. She'd written a book. Starting Over, a guide to protecting yourself in divorce. It wasn't a bestseller, but it sold steadily. Women bought it when they first suspected their husbands of cheating. Bought it when they were planning to leave. Bought it when they needed hope that they could survive this. The book had led to speaking engagements. Camille traveled now, talking to women's groups and community organizations. Sharing her story. Teaching women how to protect themselves. How to recognize the signs of infidelity. How to document evidence. How to leave safely and strategically. She'd become something she never expected to be, an advocate. A voice for women who felt voiceless. A guide for those who were lost. The work was exhausting. Some days she came home and collapsed on her couch, too tired to even make dinner. But it was good exhaustion. The kind that came from doing meaningful work. From making a difference. She'd moved out of the house she'd shared with Brandon. Sold it and used the money to buy a smaller place that was entirely hers. No memories of Brandon here. No ghosts. Just clean, open space where she could build new memories. She'd decorated it exactly how she wanted. Bold colors. Art she loved. Furniture that was comfortable instead of impressive. It was smaller than the old house, but it felt bigger somehow. Lighter. Free. Her relationships with her family had improved. Her mother had been devastated by the divorce at first. She'd loved Brandon, had thought he was a good man. But when she'd learned the truth, learned about the affairs and the lies and the wasted money, she'd been furious on Camille's behalf. Now her mother was one of New Beginning's biggest supporters. She volunteered at the office, helped with events, told everyone she knew about Camille's work. She was proud. Camille could hear it in her voice, see it in her eyes. Proud of the woman her daughter had become. Camille's phone rang. A new client. A woman who just found out her husband was cheating. She was scared, confused, didn't know what to do. "You're going to be okay," Camille told her. "I promise you're going to be okay. Come to my office tomorrow. We'll make a plan. We'll protect you. And we'll make sure you come out of this stronger than you went in." The woman started crying. Thanking her. Saying she didn't know what she'd do without this help. Camille remembered that feeling. That desperate need for someone to tell you it would be okay. That you weren't crazy. That you deserved better. Tomorrow, Camille said again. 2 p.m. Can you make it? Yes. Yes, I'll be there. After the call ended, Camille sat in her office and looked out the window. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink and beautiful. 3 years ago, she'd thought her life was over. Thought the pain would never end. But it had. The pain had faded. Not disappeared completely. She still had moments where she remembered Brandon's betrayals and felt that old anger rise up. But those moments were fewer now. Farther between. What she felt instead was gratitude. Gratitude that she'd found out when she did. Gratitude that she'd had the strength to leave. Gratitude that she'd turned her pain into something useful. Brandon had tried to destroy her. Had betrayed her in the worst ways possible. Had lied and cheated and wasted their money and their future. But he'd failed. He'd failed because Camille was stronger than he'd ever known. Stronger than she'd known herself. And now she spent her days helping other women discover their own strength. Helping them leave. Helping them survive. Helping them thrive. That was revenge. Not violence or cruelty or destruction. But success. Purpose. A life built on helping others instead of tearing them down. Brandon was miserable. She'd heard it through the grapevine. Still trying to rebuild. Still alone. Still facing consequences. And Camille? Camille was happy. Building an empire. Changing lives. Living a life that mattered. That was the best revenge of all. The book launch event was packed. Standing room only in the independent bookstore that had agreed to host it. Camille stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. Women who had read her book, who had come to hear her speak, who wanted hope that they too could survive betrayal. I used to think, Camille said, that my life would be defined by what was done to me. By the lies I was told. By the trust that was broken. I thought I would always be the woman whose husband cheated. The victim. The fool who didn't see it coming. She paused. Smiled. Looked at the copy of her book sitting on the table beside her. Starting over in bold letters across the cover. But I was wrong. My life isn't defined by what Brandon did to me. It's defined by what I did next. By the choice I made to leave. To protect myself. To build something new. To help other women do the same. Applause. Warm and genuine. Camille felt it wash over her like a wave. 3 years ago, I found out my husband was having an affair. I drove 3 hours to surprise him at his hotel. Another woman answered the door. In that moment, my entire world shattered. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my future, gone. She could see women in the audience nodding. Knew they understood. Knew they'd felt that same shattering. I could have fallen apart. Could have begged him to stay. Could have forgiven him and tried to make it work. A lot of people expected me to do that. Thought I should try to save my marriage. Work it out. Give him another chance. Camille shook her head. I didn't. And I'm so glad I didn't. Because that decision, the decision to leave, to protect myself, to demand better, that decision changed my life. It led me here. To this work. To helping all of you. More applause. Camille waited for it to quiet down. If you're here tonight because you're going through a divorce or thinking about leaving or trying to rebuild after betrayal, I want you to know something. You are stronger than you think. You are braver than you know. And you deserve better than what you're settling for. She could see tears in some eyes now. Could see women clutching her book like a lifeline. It's going to be hard. I won't lie to you about that. Leaving is hard. Divorce is hard. Starting over is hard. But staying in a relationship with someone who doesn't value you, who lies to you, who betrays you, that's harder. That pain doesn't end. It just keeps going day after day, year after year. Camille took a breath. So choose the hard that leads somewhere. Choose the hard that leads to freedom. Choose the hard that leads to a life you actually want to live. Choose yourself. The applause was thunderous. Women stood. Some were crying openly. Camille felt her own eyes burn with tears. After the speech there was a signing line. Dozens of women waiting to have their books personalized. To shake Camille's hand. To tell her their stories. You saved my life, one woman said. I read your book and realized I didn't have to stay. I'm filing for divorce next week. My sister gave me your book, another said. She went through something similar. She wanted me to know I wasn't alone. Can you sign this for my daughter? An older woman asked. She just found out her husband cheated. She needs to know she can survive this. Camille signed every book. Listened to every story. Gave every woman the encouragement she could offer. It was exhausting and energizing all at once. Near the end of the line, a man stood waiting. Tall, well-dressed, kind eyes. He looked uncomfortable in the crowd of women but patient. "Hi," he said when he reached the front. "I know this is mostly for women going through divorce, but I wanted to meet you. I'm Daniel. My sister went through your program last year. You helped her leave her abusive husband. She credits you with saving her life." "I just gave her tools," Camille said. "She did the hard work herself." "Maybe. But having someone believe in you, someone who's been there, that matters." Daniel smiled. "Anyway, I wanted to thank you. And ask if you'd like to have coffee sometime. Not a date. Just coffee. I run a nonprofit that helps families in crisis, and I think there might be ways our organizations could work together." Camille studied him. Looked for red flags. Warning signs. But all she saw was genuine kindness and professional interest. "Coffee sounds good," she said. "For work collaboration." "Absolutely. For work." He handed her a business card. "Call me when you have time. No pressure." After he left, Nicole, who had been hovering nearby the whole event, grabbed Camille's arm. "Please tell me you're going to call him." "For work collaboration," Camille said. "Right. Work." That's definitely why he drove across town to come to a book signing at a women's bookstore. Camille laughed. "Maybe. We'll see." But she tucked the business card carefully into her purse. Not because she was desperate for romance. Not because she needed a man to complete her. But because she was open to possibilities now. Open to new connections. Open to whatever came next. The event ended. Camille helped the bookstore staff clean up, said goodbye to the last few stragglers and walked to her car. The night air was cool. Clear. The stars were out. She sat in her car for a moment before starting it. Looked at the bookstore where she'd just spoken to a room full of women who needed hope. Thought about the business she'd built. The clients she'd helped. The lives she'd changed. 3 years ago, she'd stood in a hotel hallway and watched her marriage end. Watched her future crumble. Watched every plan she'd made turn to dust. Now she had a different future. One she'd built herself. One that wasn't dependent on anyone else's choices or promises or loyalty. One that was entirely hers. Her phone buzzed. Text from Maria. "Heard the event was amazing. So proud of you." Another text from Lisa. "When's the next book? We need a sequel." Another from Jennifer. "My friend wants to hire you as a consultant. Can I give her your number?" Camille smiled. Responded to each one. Then she pulled out Daniel's business card. Looked at it for a long moment. Thought about making that call. About coffee. About collaboration. About possibilities. Maybe she would call. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, she was complete. Happy. Whole. She'd survived the worst thing she could imagine. Had come through it stronger. Had built something meaningful from the ashes of her broken marriage. And whatever came next, whether it was new love or just new friendships or simply more years of building her business and helping women, it would be on her terms. Her choice. Her life. Brandon had tried to break her. Had failed. And Camille? Camille had won. Not by destroying him, though his life had certainly fallen apart. But by building something better. By being better. By choosing herself over and over again until choosing herself became as natural as breathing. That was the real ending. The real victory. The real revenge. She started her car. Pulled out of the parking lot. Drove toward home. Her home, the one she'd bought herself, the one filled with her choices and her dreams. The road ahead was dark, but Camille wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. She'd learned to navigate it. Had learned to find her way even when the path wasn't clear. And somewhere in that darkness there was light. New beginnings. New possibilities. A future that was entirely her own. She drove toward it with a smile on her face.